Hello everybody. If you're not new, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. I'm KandyCorpse. You can call me Kay. I have a list of 3 different events that I'm going to talk about in this video. I realized I never posted a video kind of talking about my own potential paranormal experiences, which is kind of crazy because that is something I talk about on my channel. As far as it goes when it comes to a believer, I do think that there are definitely things that I've never been able to explain for myself and for other people. I think a lot of paranormal things can be very easily explained. So yeah, anyway, I'm just going to talk about some things. As far as being a believer, like I said, most things I feel like can be explained. A lot of things I think are psychological. But that being said, there have definitely been things that have happened to me that I can't explain. And I've confronted other people, and they also either couldn't explain or had no idea what was going on. So it's gonna be a little weird. We're gonna talk about dolls moving on their own. We're gonna talk about possible doppelgangers. We're gonna talk about all kinds of the spooky things. So if you're interested in that, keep watching. So as I said, one of the things I'm gonna be talking about is a doll that I used to have. I don't think I have this doll name. That's Simon. He just wants to say hi. Yes, so a doll that I had that used to move on its own. So before anyone says anything, I never saw the doll move. Nobody else in my home saw the doll move. Everyone else said I was fucking crazy, okay? But this doll would move. Something that I've noticed for me throughout my life is I always thought maybe I just have a bad memory because I would set something down and then I couldn't find it sometimes for days, hours, weeks, months, years. And then all of a sudden I would find it again, you know, whatever, however long. But when it comes to pretty much anything else, I have a fairly good memory. I don't have the worst memory in the world, but for some reason, a lot of times when I set things down, they are not where I leave them, or they disappear for a while and then show up in that exact same place sometime later. With that context, this happened when I was much younger. My sister and I still shared a room. We were younger. We still had our bunk bed. And we were both given a gift. And each of us got a doll. Mine had red hair. Hers had blonde hair. And their hair was made of yarn. It was just cute, cheap, nice little dolls. And someone had given them to us when they went on vacation. So the dolls weren't antiques or anything like that. Just to kind of give some kind of backstory, these were just bought from a store in another state. They did have to, you know, travel quite a distance to get to us. Point is, these dolls, my sisters, as far as I know, wouldn't move, but I would notice that I would set my dolls in a very specific way, but this one would move, and I would have it set up. I didn't really have a shelf for them, so a couple of my dolls and other stuffies, I would set them because I had the top bunk and we were near the windows. What I would do is the curtain rod, I would tuck them in, so almost like they were sitting, and their legs would kind of sit out, and it's almost like they were sitting and a blanket was covering their legs, and so they were from the torso up. And for some reason, she would always not be there and would just be sitting on my bed, on top of my blanket, you know, in front of a pillow, just sitting. And it's weird because it was just a yarn doll with stuffing in it. So it shouldn't have been able to sit up straight. And I was younger, but eventually got to the point where I had her in one spot and I rearranged them. That was something I did a lot when I was younger, was rearranging things, whether it was things I collected or my, you know, stuffed animals, different things like that. I would rearrange them all the time. So I'd rearrange them, and that's when this activity started. It started moving, and it would always end up on my bed. And sometimes I'd put it back multiple times a day. I'd come home from school, it'd be there, I'd put it back, go to, you know, maybe I'd go to my sports practice or something like that, come home, and it'd be like that again. You know, go somewhere with my family, come home, it'd be there again. And it got to the point where I was getting frustrated. I was getting angry. I would confront my sister. I would confront my parents, my brother. I confronted everyone. They all told me to stop and that I needed to stop basically making stuff up. They thought that I was lying. I was not. And eventually I literally said out loud, you know what? I'm going to put you back and don't move again. I put the doll back in the place where I originally, and nobody was in the room. Like, we had a small house, so I don't remember who was home and who wasn't at the time, because this was well over 10 years ago. This was a long time ago. But basically, I was like, I'm gonna put you back and do not move again. I was like, obviously you don't like the new spot. I'm gonna put you back and don't move. You didn't move before. I'm gonna put you back and we're done. I put that doll back, bro, and it never fucking moved again. And this could have very easily just been someone in my house moving it around and just fucking with me, and it probably was. But the fact that it's been over 10 years and I've brought it up to my sister, I brought it up to my brother, and they both have no idea what I'm talking about. They have no memory of this happening, and they both say, like, it's not something I made up. Like, these aren't just like made up memories. Like, I can tell what the doll looked like, you know, everything like that. It's just like, cause they didn't move it. Nobody was moving it. So they have no idea what happened. Like, that, it was just weird. It was weird. So speaking on weird things that happened, that I was called crazy for experiencing, was there was a time where, at this point, these next two stories, my sister and I now had separate rooms, and I was in my new room, and my room was in the basement. So a lot of things happened in the basement, a lot of real things, really bad things, before we had moved in. These next two stories happened kind of around the same time, definitely not the same day, but kind of around the same time frame, maybe like a year or two difference type of thing. I don't remember exactly like what my exact age was, but these were both a few years ago. So one of them, our neighbor was staying the night. She had a sleepover with me, and instead of sleeping on my bed, because it was kind of small, and at this point, because we were both a bit older, there just wasn't as much room. Anyway, she was on the floor. We gave her a ton of blankets, tons of pillows, whatever. And I remember hearing someone. I was laying down, I was facing the wall, and the bed was like in the corner. So I was facing the wall, and I kind of like felt something on the back of my neck, like a breath. Like someone was, like, you know when someone's super, super close to you and they're like whispering in your ear and you can kind of feel their breath? That's what it felt like. And I heard a male's voice say something, and I can't remember the exact words now, but I did for the longest time because it like freaked me the fuck out. We're both, you know, assigned female at birth. So it's weird that I heard a very masculine voice. And so I know they said, hey. And then I think they said something along the lines of like, wanna play or come play. Something along those lines. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it was something similar to that. And I immediately, because I was like kind of half awake, like I knew that my neighbor was still asleep. So I was just kind of laying there, just like resting for a little while, just kind of waiting for her to get up. Again, we were super young. This was like 10 years ago. The first one was more like 15 years ago, honestly. I ripped those sheets off so fast. I turned around in the split second, the time it took for me to flip over. There is no possible way for her to have, one, had that kind of a deep male voice. That was crazy. And two, to go back to where she was sleeping and then like roll over and literally like have nothing be disturbed. Like pillows weren't distraught in any way. None of the stuffed animals were distraught in any way. None of the blankets were, nothing. If that was her, I would have known. And I woke her up and I said, hey, and if there was someone else in there, if there was like an actual man in there, I would have seen them, because we were at one end of the room. They would have had to run to the other end of the room, and I would have seen them attempting to leave. And there's not like there was anywhere to hide. Like it was literally just boom, like straight to the door. So like I would have known, like I would have seen someone. So, and it's not the first time that something like this had happened to me either, and it wouldn't have been the last. And I remember waking her up and being like, what the fuck? Because I had said, I'm like, what's your problem? Like, why were you being weird like that? And I tried to basically confront her, and she was like, you're crazy. I was asleep. Like, she was like, no, I was sleeping. I've been asleep. I have no idea what you're talking about. This was not a dream. I'm telling you, this was not a dream. It was so weird. Like, the fact that I heard a man's voice and I felt like and it was like a whisper, and it was literally like, hey, come play. And it was like a deep, like, adult man's voice. And I flipped the fuck out, because who are you to talk to me like that? You know what I mean? Like, that's creepy. And yeah, we just kind of moved on from that, and we were just like, you know, whatever, it is what it is. But it was weird. It was weird because I've had weird similar experiences like that a few times throughout my life. Never been able to explain it, because it either happened when I was completely alone in complete silence, no TV, no electronics on, whatever happening when I'm alone, or in instances like that where if there's another person, they're like she was asleep. You know what I mean? So this final story happened kind of around the same time, give or take a little bit, but it was roughly the same time frame. And it was, again, I think I was like, I wasn't sleeping, but I was laying on my bed. I was watching videos on my phone. My bed was in the same position it was as this other place. So to kind of give reference, like, I might put a little thing here that kind of shows, like, my bed was here and then the door was down here. So it was kind of like my room was very narrow, but it was like the length of the house. So anyway, you kind of have an idea of what was going on. I was watching videos on my phone. Honestly, around that time is kind of, I had always had, like I said, weird experiences. Those two things happened to me before this had happened. This was, of these three stories, this is the later one, I believe. And I had kind of started getting into more of the paranormal, but more doing like research and things like that. But it wasn't anything crazy. Little things here and there, like little videos, whatever. Anyway, the point is, I was watching a video. Somebody walked into my room, like, I dead ass, I'm telling you. And I didn't have any lights on. I just had the light from the window. And because it was the basement, it was the little thin windows that are like this. Not safe, by the way. Even me back then, before I weighed like 100 more pounds, even when I was like a little middle schooler, bro, I could not get out of those windows if I wanted. You couldn't even get them open. And if you could, they didn't open far enough for you to get out anyway. But if there was a fire, I was not getting out of those windows. That was not safe for anyone at all. Anyways, so they were like little tiny windows. So all I had was a little bit of light from one of those windows, and I could see someone, but I couldn't see details. And they had come in through the door, and I swear to you, it was my father. My father walked in, and he's asking me something. I don't know what it was, but it was something like, you know, if I was like doing anything or whatever. Like, I think he was like just asking me what I was doing, and I was just explaining. I think I was just like explaining the video I was watching, or, you know, whatever. We were talking, and then, you know, joking back and forth. We had a conversation for 30 fucking minutes, dude. 30 minutes. My dad and I were having a conversation, talking back and forth. And again, at this point, I don't see any details. It looks like my dad is just standing in the doorway. He's kind of like walked in the doorway, but is still standing back. And normally he would have walked forward a little bit. And I did think it was weird. But eventually, the more I started talking and having conversation, the more I would look. And that's when I started to realize this sounds, because at first I was just like, you know, and I honestly could have even been reading something on my phone too, because I used to read a lot more, and I could have been reading something on my phone. And I remember looking up and noticing that he never walked forward. And that's when I started to really look. Stop messing with my phone setup. That's when I started to like squint and try to look closer. And eventually, whoever this was, like, kind of stopped responding, just kind of stood there and let me talk. And I just thought, whatever, my dad's just not saying anything. Eventually, this actual person turns and leaves. I see them turn and walk out the door without saying anything. I'm pissed. Maybe I'll be able to finish this last story before my cats literally destroy my stuff like they always do. This is a whole person. Remember, I still think, I thought he was acting super weird, but at this point, I still think I'm talking to my father. I'm get my ass up and I march out those doors, go up the stairs, and I see my dad coming in the back door. We had like where our basement was, that's where the back door was. He's walking in the door and I'm like, what the fuck is your problem? And he's like, why are you talking to me like that? And I'm like, we were just talking and you just got up and left. What's your problem? Why did you just get up? Like, that was rude. That was disrespectful. Why did you just leave in the middle of our conversation? That was rude. I wasn't done talking. And it was like kind of joking, but I actually was like pissed because like, that's rude. That's rude. And my dad would never do something like that. And he goes, I just got home from work. And I said, no, somebody was standing in my doorway talking to me for the last 30 minutes. A man about your size, your build, was leaning in my doorway and we were talking for 30 minutes. And you said it was you. And you asked me what I was doing and how my day was going, how school was going, whatever. And we're having like an argument. Eventually he's like, shut up. He's like, you're crazy. And just walks away. My mom's like, he literally just came home. Who was I talking to? Who was I talking to? Because they said that nobody had come up from the basement. Anyway, the point is, I looked through the basement, asked my parents. I told my mom, I was like, Ma, like, seriously. Like, and she goes, he just got home. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know, I guess. I have no idea what I'm talking about because, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I was talking to a whole person for 30 minutes and I started to notice I can't see this person's facial features, but again, it was super dark in that area. We were in the basement. The only light I had was just a little bit of sun rays going through the window that was next to me, but like above my head. So all I could really see super clearly was directly in front of me, a couple feet, like 2 or 3 feet. Everything else was super dark. And like, I could see enough to see that there was someone standing there, which is normal, but I realized that I couldn't see any features. So I assumed he had like a jacket on and like pants, you know, I assumed he had like dark clothes on and a hat, whatever. My dad wears like the baseball cap. So I kind of assumed he just had a cap on and the shadow was like covering his face or whatever. But to this day, my dad swears up and down that he did not talk to me that day. Who was this man who was talking to me for 30 minutes? Why? And the whole thing just blew my mind. And I still have
bombastic side eye. Criminal.
I forgot there was a table behind me. I was like, why is my cat floating? But yeah, I don't know what happened, but someone else had a similar experience to that in my home. Sort of similar experience to that in my home, and that's something I'm going to talk about in another video. So yeah, if you guys want to hear more of my personal paranormal stories, then definitely subscribe and like and comment telling me some of your personal paranormal stories, because I know that I feel fucking crazy when I talk about this stuff, but some of this literally, like, I have talked to the people that I thought were involved, like, and there is no explanation as far as I know. So if you guys have similar stories where something happened and you like swear on your life that this shit was real, but everyone thinks you're crazy or you feel crazy because it seems so like impossible, let me know. Like, tell me in the comments that something like that has happened to you too. So that being said, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.